Hi, my name is Brian Mulligan from the Centre of Online Learning in IT Sligo, and I'll be talking to you about blended and online provision to deal with capacity, but also in regards to the report on funding of higher education. I would like to spend more time talking about the reduction of costs, unit costs in higher education. It has to be said that if you get a bunch of people together from a particular profession, say we get a bunch from higher education to talk about the crisis in funding, they might well say, we wouldn't be surprised if it said, we need more money. But throwing money at a problem is probably the least ingenious way of solving a problem. It could be said that higher education is a cartel in Ireland, and really people have no choices, so we just keep asking for more money. There are white lies probably that all professions tell ourselves, and they become myths. So I want to talk about a few educational myths. It is surprising that myths survive in education. But here's one. Current teaching is excellent. Now, this isn't really true. There's a small amount of excellent teaching. It's relatively rare. Good teaching is not as common as it should be, and poor teaching is much more common than it should be. So let's not be telling ourselves that. That's an example of a myth. Higher education improves critical thinking. Well, it probably does a bit, but maybe that's just people getting older. Some surveys in the US show that over a 4-year degree, 30% or 40%, I can't quite remember, showed no improvement in critical thinking skills during their degree. Learning outcomes highly correlated to class size. Strangely, the research says that there's a very weak correlation, that teacher quality and teaching techniques have a much bigger impact. So if you were spending money, you would be better off spending it on improving the teacher quality and changing the teaching techniques rather than reducing the class size. I said to my brother, he went into the civil service in the 70s and I went to college, and I said to him, he got a degree from Uskall later on. I said, but you're not as socially developed as me because I went to college. Now, you can imagine his response. College is not necessary for your social development, nor is it necessarily a positive experience. This shows the drinking culture in college goes right back. That's the student prints. For many students, they don't actually like a lot of the culture of college. They find it lonely and they find it stressful. The learning experience is not authentic, and they may find the whole examination and this stressful. Face-to-face is best. Lots of people still believe that, despite the fact that nearly 10 years ago research showed that blended was better than online and online was better than face-to-face. All depends on how it's done, but that's the general view of research. Face-to-face is not necessarily better, that's for sure. Now, this particular one came up during the consultative meetings for this expert group, and I was at a table, we were talking about the problem of funding, and I said, why is nobody talking about efficiency to reduce costs? Say, for instance, separating research from teaching so that we can get specialised college teachers maybe at a lesser rate with higher skill doing more hours. And somebody says, but research helps teaching. In actual fact, that person was on the expert group, the core expert group. But research shows that there is a very weak correlation between research activity and teaching, and it's essentially inefficient. So this made me think that maybe this expert group doesn't have all the expertise it needed. Okay, and when I read the report, I found that it actually said that funds may be needed to facilitate diverse learning styles. This is a tiny bit of a howler, because for a number of years it's been proven that teaching to suit several learning styles does not improve learning outcomes. This was going around for years despite the fact there was no proof confirming it, and it became very popular, and most people know that this doesn't work. So how come this got into the report? Again, I would say maybe the full range of expertise wasn't there. Now, it's not the iron triangle of education used to say that there's cost, quality and access. You can't improve one without disapproving the others. But learning technology breaks this triangle. We know in Sligo that we can improve access without affecting the other. We can improve access without, and I know from the work I've been doing that we can reduce costs as well and still maintain quality and access. Learning technology can reduce costs. So this is really, in a way, what this is about. Controlling costs, increasing capacity. Now, as we go through just a couple of ideas here, I want you to think scale. Scale is important. We shouldn't be afraid of it. What about a simple thing like recording lectures? On the right is an image from UCC where they've put in lecture capture system. It just makes it really easy for the lecturers to record their lectures. You could put a whiteboard there where that green wall is, or a green chalkboard just like I have there on the left, and you can also record spontaneous writing on the board from the lecture. Down below is a light board that we've built in Sligo that we're experimenting with at the moment. But all this allows a lecturer to quite simply record what they would do in a classroom without very much effort and without any great expense. This one actually is a booth in Sligo where you also have a screen for writing on your slides, graphic screen, or paper with a visualizer just for writing on paper and recording or broadcasting that. The benefits, the first two, revision and flipped classroom, I won't talk about there. They're benefits that improve the quality in campus learning, to be honest with you, in distance learning as well. But really what we're talking about here is reducing costs. So what we can do is we can reuse the content, so we need less resources for teaching in at a future date. Also sharing between campuses, so we can have a certain amount of colleges getting together if class sizes are too small. And when I say too small, we could be talking 30 is too small, 40, 50 is too small, because we can get them quite big. Share between campuses or on campuses where it can be difficult for people. The classroom isn't big enough, or can be the scheduling isn't good. So between campuses, on a campus, between institutions, and also between modes. So the same material can be made available to people who can't come to campus and want to study a particular module as a distance learning module. So we can make a campus module into a distance module. Don't forget that we don't have to do these recordings ourselves. There's tons of them out there, and lots of other free materials like simulations and papers and documents. So we can increase access as well, and then increase class size, increase capacity, and reduce unit costs. Okay, if we're going to use free materials on the web, why not use complete free courses? This is MIT have developed a MicroMasters in supply chain. Now it's a MicroMasters, I think it's 3 modules from a degree, but they could be used as resources in the courses. They could be used by a lecturer to flip their classroom if they teach the exact same subject, or they could be used as an elective where there isn't enough students to justify teaching that subject. And again, when I say not enough students, if we're trying to reduce costs, we might be saying that 20 students isn't enough to teach this. If there's only 20 students, maybe they should take the MOOC. We can give them tests at the end of it. We can see their certificate from the MOOC. We can give them an interview. We can give them an exam separately. But it will reduce costs dramatically. It's interesting, a group of 12 universities from the edX group have got together and they're going to recognise each other's MOOCs for credit. Can you imagine what that'll do to bring down cost? Here's an idea. What if a college decided a master's in supply chain and part of it aligned with these MOOCs, but rather than teach these MOOCs, they said, go and take those MOOCs, come back with your certificate, we'll interview you, you've got that, then you can complete the master's with us because you'll be meeting all the learning outcomes. It sounds almost heretical, but wouldn't the learning outcomes be fine? MIT certainly seems to think that these learning outcomes are fine. Why wouldn't we not leverage this? In terms of large class sizes, delivery of materials is one thing, but students do need support and do need to find out how they're getting on, particularly. So we need to be monitoring them. And we can use, there are tools available for this, like objective tests or online quizzes that can that we can use. Now, they'll test them shallowly, but they encourage them to keep up and they give them some feedback on how they're getting on. But for higher order learning outcomes, we can have them submit assignments, and there are great tools that allows a lecturer to move through the assignments, giving good feedback much faster. So the amount of time they spend per student is much less. So that gives efficiencies, allows us to deal with larger class sizes. We can also ask the students to assess each other, which adds to their learning experience, but has been showing to be amazingly accurate. Also with computerized progress monitoring, when you do this type of thing, you can identify the struggling students, and resources that you save may well be put into that, improving the quality of what you do. Down the line, probably more stuff coming, particularly in artificial intelligence. You can say that's the most exciting. I'm not going to go into it here. There are things happening now which look frightening or exciting. Particularly interest is the chatbot advisors from, I think, Georgia Tech, where the students didn't realize it was a chatbot that had been inserted, and put one up for a teaching award because it was so fast and so accurate at the advice it was giving back. Those are best done at scale. But they will be soon generally available. Now, this is a bit more controversial. What I'm saying here is, I've been saying this for a number of years, maybe so many people, we shouldn't be sending so many kids to college. Maybe a lot less should be going to college. Now, when you think about college, I would say it's a very expensive model. It's not authentic. Learning at work is generally more authentic, so it mightn't be the best way to go. So let's think about that. We have a model there already, the apprenticeship model, and it's great to see these new apprenticeships emerging. In fact, we were glad to be involved in one where, for the Insurance Institute, where we are recruiting people from Leaving Cert. They're going into employment, they're working for 4 days a week, and they're taking 1 day a week to do online courses with this. The online makes it more cost effective because we can cover the whole country from one institution. Their total costs are going down because they're in a job while they're doing it. So not only the provision costs are going down, but the total cost, the other costs associated with are going down as well. So that's an example, and this would probably lead to better learning outcomes. But what if students decide to just get a job, or we tell them just go get a job? There will be lots of online courses available to you. There's quite a few as it is. Not as many as there should be. But there is this movement in the state telling students now, or telling young people now, and it's run by young people, don't go to college, go get a job. You'll put yourself in debt if you go to college. Go out, get a job, get the training you need, and you will get on fine. As more online courses become available, and we should be making them available, this will reduce the cost and increase capacity. This is an example. The Masters of Science and Computer Science from Georgia Tech is a quarter the price. By the way, can you imagine what that's going to do to all the other computer science masters in the US? If you could stay at work and do it at a quarter the price from a really good university. And what if you don't have an undergraduate degree to do that? Well, there's a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from the University of the People that's accredited as well, and it's very low cost. Competency-based education may come, which is, if you know it, just prove it to us. It doesn't cost much. It's a bit like RPL on steroids. And if you don't know it, we'll provide you with self-learning materials that you can go through and some support help as well, but it's much lower cost. Why does this matter? Well, first of all, I'd say is we're going to need an awful lot of education, higher and further education in the future. A lot more people are going to need it, and they're going to need it throughout their lifetime. This is a huge increase in the demand for higher education and re-higher education, as it were. So we can't have this having a greater part of the GDP of the country. That's just not feasible. We can't be putting the state in debt or asking the students to borrow money and putting them in debt. So it behoves us to reduce our unit costs to become more efficient. Also, if we don't do it, others from outside the state or other actors may do it, and we'll become irrelevant. So it's worth our while in higher education doing it. Okay, so even now, these cheaper programs will come in from abroad and take our students from us. But the question is, will people continue to value degrees? Will they have other options other than degrees? This is a survey from a few years ago comparing what people in university thought of their courses from what business leaders thought of their courses. And the amount of people who thought they were going to get a job, there is a disconnect there. You can see that. The CEO of LinkedIn suggests that we're concentrating too much on degrees. Now LinkedIn have an online learning company, lynda.com, so they might say that anyway. So maybe we'll take it with a pinch of salt, but they're saying that and it's worth considering. However, Ernst & Young has removed degrees from their entry criteria, saying there's no evidence university equals success. Maybe they have other ways of evaluating the competencies of applicants for jobs. Maybe this is part of it here. Alternative credentials, alternative providers of education, different types of courses, mostly online, it has to be said, different ways of evaluating performance in those courses. And there's a lot of happening, online proctoring and testing. Ways of issuing electronic certificates so that they can't be faked. They become more reliable if employers can rely on these certificates. Also, if they can drill down into them and examine in detail what was taken in these courses, what competences were developed, this would make alternative forms of education a lot more attractive, possibly than degrees. So to conclude, technology can help. We need to increase our capacity and control our costs. But what I really like to drive home is we really need to seriously control our costs. That looking for more money is not going to solve the problem. Okay, thank you very much.